Many argue that Bush v. Gore, and back to your earlier work, hurt the court's legitimacy. If you are confirmed, the Supreme Court will have not one, not two, but three justices, you, Justice Kavanaugh, and Chief Justice Roberts, who worked on behalf of the Republican Party in matters related to the Bush v. Gore case. Do you think that that's a coincidence?
Senator Klobuchar, if you're asking me whether I was nominated for this seat because I worked on Bush versus Gore for a very brief period of time as a young associate, that doesn't make sense to me.
You heard Senator Klobuchar correctly. Justices Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Barrett all were on the Republican recount team that helped George W. Bush take the presidency over Al Gore some 2 decades ago. Now that President Trump has stacked the courts in his favor, he's hoping SCOTUS's conservative majority will give him the win if he challenges the 2020 election results against Biden. In fact, that's exactly why Trump nominated Justice Barrett to the Supreme Court.
This scam that the Democrats are pulling, it's a scam. The scam will be before the United States Supreme Court. And I think having a 4-4 situation is not a good situation. If you get that, I don't know that you'd get that. I think it should be 8-0 or 9-0. But just in case it would be more political than it should be, I think it's very important to have a ninth justice.
Trump knows that a 4-4 ruling in SCOTUS means an L for him. Here to talk about what Bush v. Gore Part 2 could look like in 2020, I'm attorney Adrienne Lawrence, and this is Overruled. Welcome to TYT Overruled. Your case for today concerns whether we'll see another Bush v. Gore, but 2020 fascist style. If you recall, back in 2000, Bush and Gore were less than 600 votes apart in Florida, with Bush in the lead. Florida State Supreme Court ordered a recount, only for Bush to run to SCOTUS, getting them to reverse the decision, ultimately banning a recount and handing him the presidency. Should the 2020 election be that close, or should Trump simply look to steal another election? Here are 3 things you'll want to know about how Trump plans to leverage the courts and how SCOTUS could impact the outcome. First, both Biden and Trump have high-level lawyers on standby and souped-up war rooms ready. Here are the 2 types of claims they may bring in court. An abuse of power claim. That would be like if state legislature says that the election results are void and tries to appoint their own electors to vote in the Electoral College, which is something that's been threatened before. The second type of lawsuit is a ballot count dispute. This one is something that the Republicans and Trump have been teeing up for. And we've seen that in the Republicans running to court, trying to get ballot counts restricted, and Trump aggressively undermining the integrity of mail-in ballots.
We're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transfer of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats.
This year, as we vote in the middle of a pandemic, a record number of mail-in ballots are going to be cast, and most of them will be by Democrats. Trump knows that, which is why he'll try to leverage the courts to get those ballots thrown out.
I think this will end up in the Supreme Court, and I think it's very important that we have 9 justices.
It's pretty safe to say that wherever Trump has a momentary or fleeting lead in the polls, Republicans will try to get state officials to slow down or stop counting ballots just so that they can certify the results early on election night, even though the vote is incomplete and many mail-in ballots have yet to arrive. That's why Trump keeps saying things like this.
Very, very proper and very nice if a winner were declared on November 3rd. Instead of counting ballots for 2 weeks, which is totally inappropriate, and I don't believe that that's by our laws.
Second, while it's unlikely that Trump will legitimately get to SCOTUS, it doesn't mean he won't try, especially if Pennsylvania is in play. Basically, without Pennsylvania, Trump has just a 3% chance of winning re-election, and that's per 538. That's why the state Republicans have been running to SCOTUS a lot lately. I covered this in the October 29th episode of Overruled, and you can check it out for details. But the short of it is that Republicans in Pennsylvania are challenging the 3-day extension to mail-in ballots. SCOTUS signaled last week that it may be willing to decide that challenge after the election, but not before. Mind you, after the election is when Barrett is more likely to be on the job, giving conservatives the majority they need to throw out a number of Pennsylvania's mail-in ballots. Pennsylvania is a big deal. Trump's unsuccessfully sued to have poll watchers at election offices there, and just about a week ago, he tried to stir up MAGA so they won't accept the election results.
Right? The governor counts the ballots, and we're watching you, Governor, very closely in Philadelphia. We're watching you. A lot of bad things happen there with the counting of the votes. We're watching you, Governor Wolf, very closely.
Third, would SCOTUS's conservative majority throw out absentee ballots or stop a recount? If the opinions from last week are any indicator, yes to both, unfortunately. In their opinions last week, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch both made clear that they believe state legislature has almost complete power over how states handle presidential elections. In Pennsylvania, Republicans run the legislature and Democrats run the Supreme Court. That means if there's a challenge to the ballots, Pennsylvania's Supreme Court may rule in favor of counting absentee ballots or holding a recount, just like Florida's Supreme Court did in 2000 in Bush v. Gore. But then, much like what went down in Bush v. Gore, Trump may run to SCOTUS, and they could reverse Pennsylvania's Supreme Court, ultimately deferring to the state's Republican majority legislature. That's it. Those are the 3 things you should know about the role SCOTUS could play in the election and how Trump may try to leverage their conservative majority. Given Biden's lead, we may not see a Bush v. Gore style face-off this year, but 2020 has been a hell of a year, so who knows? What do you think? Will this election have its day in the Supreme Court as Trump anticipates? Let us know your thoughts below. Hit me up on Twitter at #TYTOverruled, and thanks for watching.